All right, when we're figuring out our panel doors, I've got this form for you to fill out, and it's a two-sided form. So you need to determine, and it says on top, are you doing double doors with no center stile, okay? Double doors, no center stile. Or the other option on the other side is a single door or two doors with a center stile. So it depends on which way you're going. One is going to cover an opening. This one here, single door or double door with center stiles, is covering its own individual opening, where a double door with no center stiles is going to have one opening where those doors come and just almost touch each other. So there's no center stile in the middle. So once you determine which side you're using of this form, we're going to go ahead and start filling this out. And we're going to need our cabinet to check these sizes. So let's go over to our cabinet and take our form with us. All right, today this vanity is what we're going to be making the doors for. And if we follow our paper, the first step is to make the stiles. And when we talk about a door, the stiles, just like a face frame, the stiles are on the sides of the project. The rails are on top and bottom. So we're going to be starting with the stiles today first. And if we look at our form, it tells us the height of the opening the doors will cover. So we need to figure that out, the height the opening will cover, and put that number right in there. So if I take my tape measure and measure my opening, I am getting 25 and an eighth. 25 and an eighth. So I'm just going to simply write that number in this top box. So right here in the top one, I'm going to put 25 and 1/8. Now if I follow that line across, it tells me plus 1 inch, and that answer goes below. So 25 and an eighth plus an inch is 26 and an eighth. Okay, so now this is the size of my stile. I need a finished size of 2 9/16 wide by 26 and an eighth inches long. Okay, so that's the length of our stiles. We're going to go ahead and get these pieces cut to size and show you how to run them through the machine. And while we're here at our project, I'm going to get the width of the opening, or the width of the frame that we're covering. So I'm going to take that measurement, and that is right at 24 inches. So I'm just going to write that down for now. Right up here in the line or section B, it says rails. The width of the opening the door will cover, and that was 24 inches. I've got my two sets of stiles cut from my doors, and I'm coming back here to my, again, we're doing a double door with no center stile. I've completed the stile sections, and now we're going to do the rail. Now the rail wants us to know how big the opening is from right to left, and we put that down when we were over at our cabinet. Now because there's no center stile, we're going to take this number and divide it by 2. So 24 divided by 2 should be 12. Okay, 12 inches. Now we're going to take a set of stiles and put them together so that the joint is in the middle. And we're going to take a measurement across there and get a measurement for X. And that's going to go over here in this blank. So we're going to figure that out. I'm going to take these, I'm going to put one set face down, and I'm going to have the joint towards the middle. So they're set up like this. And then I'm going to measure across so I get a full outside measurement to measurement so I get that size. Now, hopefully we're at 5 inches, but we could be off a little bit. And we're right at 5 on ours, but we always want to double check. Don't ever assume that it was made right. You always want to confirm your measurements. Measure twice, cut once kind of mentality. So that was 5 inches. So I'm going to transfer that right here to 5. So then I'm going to take and move to the next line, and it says number 4 minus number 5. So go up to line 4 is 12 minus line 5, which is 5. So 12 minus 5 is going to be 7. So I'm going to come down here and I'm going to put 7 in this answer. So once we've got 7 transferred, then we just work across, and it says 7. Now we're going to add 1 inch and 5/8, and then the arrow tells us to drop that. This arrow here tells us to drop that number down there. So 7 plus 1 inch and 5/8 is 8 and 5/8. So I'm going to drop that number here, 8 and 5/8. So our rails need to be 2 9/16 by 8 5/8. That's how we're going to determine the length. We're going to follow this process through here. Now, we always want to cut the end grain first. So on the rail ends, we're going to have to cut the end first before we run them through the machine that I just showed you. So let's go look at the other shaper we need to take a look at and cut these to size. All right, I've got my 4 rails cut. I'm now going to assemble this as a dry fit and make sure that we're the right size when we're done. So I'm just going to slide these together. I'm not using any glue at this point. This is just a dry fit to make sure everything is going to be the correct size. So I'm going to come down here. I'm going to make sure we're nice and even on the end. My height that I had to cover was 25 1/8, so we should be 26 1/8, which we are. My width of my opening is 24 total, so I should be at 12 1/2 wide. That will give me a 1/2 inch overlay on one side, but not the other. So 12 1/2. I'm just slightly over at 12 9/16, so that's good. We're not too small. That gives us enough that we can adjust that crack between the 2 doors later on after we cut it down to size, so that's perfect. So that door size will work. That's how you would make the frame of the door. So if you're going to move on and do a panel, to figure out the size of the panel, we're going to have to follow the instructions on here. It says measure from lip to lip once it's put together. So width from lip to lip plus a 1/16. So I'm going to measure, put this together, make sure my ends are nice and flat, and I'm going to measure from this lip here, which on this little piece would be this top lip right here. So I'm measuring from this lip on one side to the lip on the other. So I'm just going to take my tape measure and measure with this pushed together. Try not to jostle it apart. And I've got this at 8 1/8. So I'm going to put that in my top line here, 8 1/8. And then it tells me to add a 1/16 and the answer goes below. So that's going to be 8 3/16. Now I'm going to measure the height from lip to lip. I'm going to turn this door so I can not have to reach the far end so much, and I want to make sure my joints stay flat or flush. I don't want to get it too small or too big, so it's important that that joint stays nice and even on both ends. If you need to, if this is moving around on you, you could throw a clamp on here so that it doesn't slide apart. And now we're going to measure from this lip down here to this lip. So I'm going to come down here and very carefully, without pushing it apart, and measure. And I'm getting 21 5/8. So I'm going to write that down, 21 5/8. And then it tells me to add a 1/16 and the answer goes below. So 21 11/16 is my answer. That's how we figure out for the door for the panel. Now you've got to figure out what kind of panel you're using. Flat panel, raised panel, or glass. If you have glass, you would skip this section.